The Committee of Adjustment meeting will begin at 2. You're live to YouTube.
So don't hit it.
The half on. Yeah, the roof, yeah.
So I'll call the meeting to order at 1:59. And hi, everyone. Welcome to the Committee of Adjustment meeting. I'm Melinda McGregor. And I would like to introduce the rest of our committee. To the right, I have Anthony Rossi, Frank Bruni, and to my left, I have Joseph Greco and Wayne Greco. I'd also like to introduce our planning staff member, Steve, and then Michelle Kelly, our secretary treasurer.
Madam Chair, I'll proceed with the land acknowledgement. I acknowledge with respect that we're in Robinson Huron Treaty Territory, that the land on which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and known as Bawating. Bawating is the home of Garden River First Nation, Batchewana First Nation, and the historic Sault Ste. Marie Métis Council. Madam Chair, if I could have a motion for the minutes of the May 17th meeting.
Can I get a motion for the minutes of the May 17th meeting?
I will move.
Okay, thank you, Anthony. And second by Wayne, and all in favor? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I've been advised by Member Bruni that he wished it noted that he has a pecuniary interest in tab 4 and 5, that being an application A1323 and B1223, 349 Patrick Street. He cites his pecuniary interest as related to the owner and an employment relationship. And Member Bruni will vacate the gallery when that application is heard. So we'll move right to the next matter. I have as well, I've had no request for a withdrawal or a deferral of any of the applications. So we'll move to the first matter. The first matter on your agenda, which will be heard, is application A1023. That's an application from Hanley Dionisi, and Mike Dionisi is making his way to the podium. And he is here representing the application. Hanley Dionisi is the owner of Civic number 717 Sunnyside Beach Road, being Lot 8 Sunnyside Beach Subdivision, Plan 1M550, former Township of Park. It is located on the southeasterly side of Sunnyside Beach Road and abuts Lake Superior. The subject property is designated rural area in the official plan and is zoned R1 estate residential. Relief is requested from the provisions of bylaw 2005-150 as amended by permitting a detached garage to be located in the required front yard and by reducing the southeasterly side yard setback, specifically sections 9.1.4, which says that no accessory building shall be located in a required front or exterior side yard. The applicant seeks to permit a 7.32 meter by 7.32 meter detached garage to be constructed in the required front yard. As well, sections 9.5.3.1 and 9.5.2 of zoning bylaw 2005-150 stipulates that accessory buildings shall adhere to the same yard regulations set out for the main building, being a front yard of 12 meters and an easterly side yard of 6 meters. The applicant seeks to reduce the front yard setback for the proposed garage to 7.6 meters and to reduce the southeasterly side yard to 2.5 meters. Notice of public hearing was sent by personal mail to neighboring properties by posting a sign on site and by posting on the city website. As part of the application review, this proposal was circulated to internal departments and external agencies for their review as well. Building, planning, legal, PUC, public works, Sault Ste. Marie Region Conservation Authority, and Algoma Public Health had no concerns. Engineering, fire services, and Bell Canada did not respond. Building division staff advised that permits and approvals will be required prior to any work commencing. Planning staff have no objections to this application, but recommend as a condition of approval that the vehicular entrance to the garage is located elsewhere from the northeast facing wall. This will match the design of other properties in the neighborhood and will better maintain the front yard landscaping and mature vegetation that is characteristic of the neighborhood streetscape. The applicant has indicated that they intend to construct the garage with a vehicular entrance on the southwest facing wall. Planning also noted that accessory buildings and structures in the R1 zone shall have a maximum height of 6 meters. PUC Services, being the electrical utility, advised that they have no concern with the proposed variance to setbacks. The owner should be aware that based on their records, their underground house service likely runs underneath the proposed garage location. It is recommended that they contact PUC to discuss options for the electrical service. If the proposed garage location is over the underground service, it is highly recommended that the service be relocated. If the garage is built over the existing underground service and a failure occurs, the service will be disconnected and it will be the responsibility of the owner to provide new service infrastructure. It's my understanding, Madam Chair and members, that the applicant has been in contact with PUC and he has no issues with complying with any situation that they deem appropriate. Engineering and construction staff advise that there is an existing drainage swale with a drainage agreement located on the west side of the property. Sault Ste. Marie Region Conservation Authority advised that the subject property as circulated is located in an area under the jurisdiction of the Conservation Authority with regard to Ontario Regulation 18606, development interference with wetlands and alterations to shoreline and water courses. Any development on the subject property will require a site plan review and may require a permit from the Conservation Authority. And again, the applicant is aware of that. Algoma Public Health advised that a performance level review will need to be applied for prior to installation. Since then, Algoma Public Health has commented that they have no issues. Staff comments: no evidence that approval would cause adverse impacts to the surrounding neighborhood. Recommended conditions for any approval are: vehicular entrance is prohibited along the northeast facing wall, and that the applicant provide written support from PUC Distribution Inc. regarding the proposed garage location with the building permit application. So that's the recommended conditions, and those are my submissions, Madam Chair. And again, Mr. Dionisi is in the gallery.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. And Mr. Dionisi, do you have any other information you would like to provide the committee?
Oh,
No? Okay, thank you. And committee members, do you have any questions for Mr. Dionisi? And I just had one question. So you were okay with the vehicle entrance not being on the,
That was, I thought indicated on my plan, but it was.
Okay.
I thought where the garage was going, or the garage door, and that's exactly where it was going regardless.
Okay, perfect. Okay. With that, I will close the discussion and ask for someone to put forth a motion. Okay, Anthony?
For with the recommended conditions.
Great, thank you.
Second.
And Joseph second. And all in favor? Great, and motion passed. And Mr. Dionisi, just a reminder, you don't have to stick around for the rest of the app. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could bring the committee's attention to item 9 on the agenda, I'll move that item forward. That being application B1523, an application from Sandra Ann Gordon and the estate of Frederick Gordon, and Bill Webb is representing the applicant. And has made his way to the podium.
Thank you.
Sandra Ann Gordon and the estate of Frederick Gordon are the owners of civic number 1425 Old Garden River Road, being lot 9, Plan H719, rank and location. The subject property is approximately 6.7 hectares in size and is located on the south side of Old Garden River Road, approximately 600 meters east of the Landslide Road, Old Garden River Road intersection. The subject property is designated rural area in the official plan and is zoned rural area. The applicant is requesting the committee's consent to sever and convey the westerly 12.29 meters fronting on Old Garden River Road and having an area of 2.62 hectares and attach it to the abutting property identified as 1387 Old Garden River Road. The intent of the application is to increase the land holding known as 1387 Old Garden River Road. The proposed lot configurations are the severed parcel being 12.9 meter frontage, irregular in depth, and 2.62 hectares in size. The retained lands having 80 meters of frontage on Old Garden River Road, a depth of 715 meters, and being approximately 4.41 hectares in size. Notice of public hearing was sent by personal mail to neighboring properties by posting a sign on site and posting on the city website. As part of the application review, this proposal was also circulated to internal departments and external agencies for their review. Building, planning, engineering, PUC, fire services, public works, the Conservation Authority, and Algoma Public Health had no concerns. Legal staff did not respond. Planning staff have no concern with this application. The frontage requirement for rural area zones is 45 meters. The property at 1387 Old Garden River Road has a non-conforming frontage of approximately 18.3 meters. The conveyance of the severed parcel to the abutting 1387 Old Garden River Road will increase the frontage of that property to be closer to the rural area zone requirement and will thus be of similar character with nearby properties. The Conservation Authority advised that it comes under their jurisdiction with regard to Ontario Regulation 18606. Any development on the subject property will require a site plan review and may require a permit from the Conservation Authority. Currently, the benefiting property being 1387 Old Garden River Road is an undersized rural lot of record. Conveyance as proposed will see the existing non-conforming frontage increased and the lot area would no longer be non-conforming, as it will then exceed the current bylaw requirements. Conditions for approval are, but not limited to, provision of registered survey plan, payment of certificate fees, provision of applicable transfer documents. Subsections 53 or 5 will apply to the transfer. Consolidation of benefiting parcels, discharge or partial discharge of any charge or mortgage on the property, payment of municipal taxes, and compliance with zoning bylaw provisions. And those are my submissions, Madam Chair. And again, Bill Webb is in the gallery.
Great, thank you, Michelle. And Mr. Webb, do you have any information you would like to provide the committee?
Nope, Michelle covered it all.
Okay, thank you. And committee members, do you have any questions for Mr. Webb?
Madam Chair, I'll also note that Mrs. Gordon is present as
Yes.
well.
Yeah, thank you. Should I? Miss Ford, she has it? No. Okay. So with all that, then I would like to close the discussion and ask for a motion. Okay, thank you, Wayne.
Second the motion.
And Joe will second, and all in favor? Great, motion passed, and thank you.
Thank you. Bring you back to tab 2 on the agenda. And tab 2 and tab 3 are tandem applications, both minor variance and consent. So we will consider them at the same time, although I will require 2 separate motions. And Carlos Spadafora is here representing the applicant and making his way down to the podium. So I'm going to begin with the consent application so that you understand what the severance is about and then the reason why we'll need a minor variance. The consent application is B1123. Algoma Power Inc. is the owner of Civic number 251 Industrial Park Crescent. It's quite a lengthy legal description. Is there anyone else in the gallery here that's here to speak or interested in this application? You are. Do you want me to read the whole legal description of the property, or is the subject address sufficient? Okay, thank you. It is located on the west side of Industrial Park Crescent between Great Northern Road and Sackville Road. The subject property is designated industrial in the official plan and is zoned M2 medium industrial. Subject to final approval of minor variance application A1223, the applicant is requesting the committee's consent to sever and convey a rear irregularly shaped parcel being approximately 1.656 hectares in size. Access to Sackville Road would be provided by a right-of-way easement over the westerly abutting city property fronting on Sackville Road. The consent is together with an easement for communication lines for the mutual benefit of the proposed retained and severed parcels. The intent of the application is to create one additional industrial lot and a mutually beneficial easement for communication lines. The proposed lot configurations are: the retained land would have frontage of 30 meters, be irregular in depth, be 2.32 hectares in size. The severed lands would have no frontage, be irregular in depth, and be approximately 1.656 hectares in size, and that would be no frontage on a municipally maintained street. Communication line easement would be no frontage, be irregular, and be approximately 0.16 hectares in size. The right-of-way easement would be 53.7 meters, and notice of public hearing was sent by personal mail to neighboring properties by posting a sign on site and posting on the city website. As part of the application review, this proposal was circulated to internal departments and external agencies for their review. Building, planning, engineering, legal, PUC, fire services, public works, and the Conservation Authority had no concerns. Bell Canada staff did not respond. Planning staff advised that the subject property is both industrial and residential in character. The east side of Sackville Road is zoned M2 medium industrial, whereas the west side of the road is zoned single detached residential, being R2. Therefore, land use compatibility issues exist between industrial and sensitive uses due to their close proximity. Through this application, staff requests conditions that will improve the existing situation but do not address all current bylaw regulations, hence the need for variance application A1223. Staff noted that the variance is in nature as it will become redundant with the completion of the Sackville Road extension. Planning staff recommend the following conditions of approval. The westerly lot line of the severed parcel be subject to the same standards as a front lot line under the M2 zone. Therefore, a 15-meter setback from the west lot line is required, in addition to 75% of this setback being landscaped. This aligns with plans to extend Sackville Road north to Third Line, at which time the newly created severed lot would front on the Sackville Road extension. An agreement in principle currently exists, which, once registered, will grant access to the property via Sackville Road. Therefore, the access point should also have the same regulation standards as a front yard as described in the point above. The severed portion of the parcel will be deemed subject to site plan control, which, when implemented, will address such matters as noise, dust, spillage onto the roadway, and odor, etc. It is noted that in a recent conversation with John Martella of GFL, assurances were made that effective immediately, the company will enact dust control measures on the access point and the gravel areas of the property. Engineering staff had the following comments. We have no concerns about the reduction of minimum frontage. Engineering has participated in discussion about granting an access easement across municipal property to Sackville Road. Frontage will be provided once the Sackville Road extension is built. The city requests an easement to accommodate a drainage ditch from the south side to the north side and then to the west for the purpose of providing a drainage outlet. Private easements are likely required between the two severed parcels to accommodate sanitary servicing. There is an Ontario Hydro easement located in the western portion of the property. Any construction must satisfy the requirement of that easement. Legal division staff advise that the terms of the easement have been negotiated, and this would be the right-of-way easement, have been negotiated, and an agreement in principle has been reached between the city and the applicant. At this point, the severance needs to move forward in order for the easement to be completed between the city and the applicant. Once the severance is completed, the required reference plan will be registered along with the negotiated easement language. PUC Services, being the electrical utility, advised that an electrical easement will be required for servicing the proposed severed lot. Any existing easements and infrastructure are to remain. It is recommended that the owner contact PUC well in advance to discuss electrical servicing requirements of any proposed development. Public Utilities Commission, being the water utility, advised that any outstanding water frontage fees will be due at the time of connection. A private water easement between property owners will be required for servicing the proposed severed lot. Any existing easements and infrastructure are to remain. It is recommended that the owner contact PUC well in advance to discuss water servicing requirements of any proposed development. Staff comments and recommendations. Recommended conditions for approval are: the severed portion of the parcel be deemed subject to site plan control, which, when implemented, will address such matters as noise, dust, spillage onto the roadway and odor, etc. Approval to be subject to final approval of minor variance application A1223. Provide an easement in favor of the city to accommodate a drainage ditch from the south side to the north side and then to the west for the purpose of providing a drainage outlet. Provide easements, private easements where required between the two severed parcels to accommodate sanitary servicing. Provide an electrical easement for servicing the proposed severed lot. Provide a private water easement between property owners for servicing the proposed severed lot. Recommended advisements on any approval would be outstanding water frontage will be due at the time of connection. Construction must satisfy Hydro One's requirement for their easement located in the western portion of the property, and any existing easements and infrastructure are to remain. As for the minor variance application, relief is requested from the provisions of bylaw 2005-150 as amended to facilitate the severance and conveyance represented in consent application B1123 by reducing the lot frontage and permitting a lot to be created that does not front on a public owned and maintained street. Please note, access to Sackville Road would be provided by a right-of-way easement over the westerly abutting city property fronting on Sackville Road. Specifically, section 14.2.2 requires a minimum frontage of 30 meters, reduce the frontage requirement to 0 meters, and permit a lot to be created that does not have frontage on a street that is publicly owned and maintained by the municipality year-round. Again, notice of the public hearing was sent by personal mail to neighboring properties, by posting a sign on site, and by posting on the city's website. As part of the application review, building, planning, engineering, legal, PUC, fire service, public works, and the Conservation Authority had no concerns to the variance. Bell Canada staff did not respond. The comments that I've previously read for the consent were submitted as well for the minor variance, so I won't reiterate. Madam Chair, those are my submissions. Again, Mr. Spatafora is in the gallery, and we have residents that may wish to speak.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. And Mr. Spatafora, do you have anything that you would like to bring forward to the committee or address at this moment?
Great. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, Madam Secretary, Treasurer, members of the committee. I should point out that Jennifer Rose and Dave LaRochelle, just sitting here behind me to my right from Algoma Power, are in attendance as well. I think that the applications are pretty straightforward, and the most important fact is that Algoma Power is bringing forward the application as the owner of the property, and this is part of a 4 or 5 year process by which Algoma Power has been working to have a new headquarters here in the Sioux. They had dealt with the previous property owner, and then in the interest of time and for the purposes of their development, ended up with owning the whole of the property. The intent, of course, is ultimately to sever the back 4 acres, and the purpose of the minor variance is pretty straightforward. It doesn't have frontage today. Hopefully at some point in time, for purposes of the city, although the committee wouldn't deal with it, Sackville will go through and that issue will be resolved, as the report of the Secretary Treasurer pointed out. For purposes of Algoma Power, they ultimately will own the, make sure I got my bearings, the easterly portion, the 8 acres of the property. That's, if you've had the opportunity to drive by there, you'll see their new headquarters. The property that will be severed will ultimately, and in pretty short order, once things are completed, hopefully with regards to this severance application, assuming it is approved, will be transferred to a party that was or is related to the previous owner under the original agreement between API and the prior owner. And the prior owner is aware that part of the property has been used, perhaps raising some eyebrows or questions on the part of the neighbors of the area as described. I mean, I think we're all familiar with it. One side's industrial, one side's residential. And mention has been made of Mr. Martella's role with GFL and their use of the property and what they're open to. API does not oppose to what's been proposed in the application and how to deal with that remaining 4 acres. And it's my understanding, not only via John Martella's comments, but also from the eventual owner that they understand the purpose of what's being requested here. So at the end of the day, I'm here for Algoma Power, who is here represented, and they don't have anything specific to point out other than the fact that they will do what they have to because they are the applicant, ensure that the conditions of any application and approval are met.
Thank you. Committee members, do you have any questions, Mr. Spatafora? Okay, well, on that, then I'd like to welcome anyone who has or would like to speak to the matter. And when you come up, just please say your name and your address for Michelle and whoever wants to go first.
I live on 5 Mary Avenue, which is adjacent to the property in question.
You said 5 Mary?
Yes.
And then your first name and last name.
Italo Bernardo.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. Yeah, we've been living there for about 3.5, 4 years. When we moved in, there was no access to it, just like a road trail that was used by the GFL. And since that, the access has been made and it has been used for storing their bins and trailers and whatnot. You've mentioned dust control, sound, so on. So this has been an issue, whereas it shakes the house. When those trucks come in and out, you can't breathe. The cars are covered with dust. I've made several requests for something for the removing of the dust, something to settle it. Nothing has occurred. Every time there's a heavy rain, the roads wash out, fill the sewers and the stuff in front of our house. City has to come and clean all the time. They start early in the morning, finish around 5. The type of vehicles that they use, unfortunately, just in the nature, are very loud. When they hit bumps, they're extremely loud. You can hear them in the house to the point where they startle you. I've observed their drivers, and I've filmed them as well, leaving product in the back of the bins. I don't know if that was ever zoned for that. So you've got refuge garbage, construction garbage sitting in the back. And they may be there for 3-4 days. Eventually get cleared out. We've had trucks drive directly out of the site down Mary Avenue, which is children and people. Doors swung wide open one evening. Anything was in the way, they would have killed them or destroyed them. The drivers do not stop. They slow down briefly and they continue on. They do that, like I said, all those issues of noise and safety occur. For me, once the property was sold, the general plan, the plan itself had always access and entrance from the commercial end, not into the industrial. Community is on Sackville Road. So I never thought anything of it. I said, this is no way this can continue. There's a road and this was designed to go into that area. So now they were piling their equipment basically on city property. It looked like a train wreck for a winter there. So, the old adage, I was burnt by the hot, now I'm afraid of the cold. If the same people are going to utilize that space, I don't understand. I don't trust why they would do it any other way other than the cleaning up. For me, the ditch that's there now should be opened up. That entrance should be closed off until further studies are done or a different use for that property is done. I have no problems with expansion and use property for development of the Soo. We need it. But in the proximity for the neighborhood, for that type of use, to me, is abuse of the neighbors. They had that property, they owned the property. If they wanted to develop it, they could have burned it off so we didn't see anything or hear anything and leave from the industrial side. But yet, to make money, they sold it, they took the best part, now they want to basically abuse everybody on the other end. I don't agree with any of that. If there was something that was built commercial, of course, but not for that, that would be fine. Everywhere else on Sackville Road has taken the time and the effort to do something proper. The front is maintained, visually pleasant, they're quiet. That is not only an eyesore, but it's a safety factor. They put in a fence, a gate. The gate is not closed all the time. We have people drive in there, throw garbage in there. There's people there at night. This is not a safe environment and it's not being used properly. Unfortunately, it's not in the public eye because of the way it is. So no one seems to care except for the people that are there. But now that we're here, I wanted to voice my opinion. I don't think that they've been using the property properly. And if they get their right of way, they're going to do more of the same. So I would hope that you would consider more studies and possibly refusing them to use that property for that reason. Well, thank you for listening. And I hope we can get some.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Question for you, Mr. Bernardo. Mr. Bernardo,
Sorry.
I've got a question for you. So you're on Mary Avenue, correct?
Mary Avenue, yes.
And where are the children playing that you're talking about? Are they on Mary Avenue or on the Sackville Road?
Well, Mary Avenue, he's into Sackville.
Yep.
So there's a sidewalk going there. It's not only children, everybody is walking the roads. They walk there at night. They go through there. It's public access.
But they're on Sackville Road or on Mary Avenue?
Both.
So there's children playing on Sackville Road.
Anybody that's walking on Mary Avenue has access to Sackville. We have a public sidewalk.
Okay.
So they're riding their bikes, whatever. I
Understand.
mean, there's young people there. There's old people there. I'm a senior citizen. I can't move as like I used to.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify.
And we have a park there down the road.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I mean, if anybody wishes to see video that through the last 3 years I've recorded of what I just finished saying, the amount of dust, the runoff, the trucks, the noise, I'll be more than willing to show anybody what was there. And like I said, I honestly never thought that we would get to this point. I always thought that the company would eventually sell the property for a proper use. And the city, of course, in its wisdom, would do what it needed to do to protect the citizens. But like I said, it's been 3 years. It's just got progressively worse. And I have called my alderman to have her come over, take a look. She's no longer there. Talk to other people. They say they're going to address the issue, but it seems like money talks and power is ultimately everything. And it's actually very uncomfortable. It feels like no one's listening to the taxpayers and the people that are there. Again, nothing wrong with getting a business started. Nothing wrong with utilizing those properties. That's fantastic. Generates income and it does all the right things. But we have to respect the people around us too. I know I do. And I would hope that they would do the same.
Appreciate it.
Anybody else?
I have another question for Mr. Spatafor, if he could come back.
Yeah, I was going to ask Mr. Spatafor if he would like to come back and maybe.
Mr. Spatafor, just a quick question here. I've got these maps here that they've given us. I'm just having trouble on this map here. I don't know if you've got them. If you want to come down.
You go up there.
Yeah, I'd like to know where the driveway is going to be or the entrance easement over the city property is going to be.
Absolutely. To answer the question, Algoma Power, I just want to be clear on something. I appreciate Mr. Bernardo's comments, and Algoma Power is obviously not looking to do anything it's a company that's recognized for its social conscious activity in the environment. To be very clear, the purchase of the property has always been the intention to capture the first 8 acres. That's all they've got approval for. And as you can appreciate, as a power company, there are other regulatory authorities and processes that have to be captured. However, as we probably are aware, when you're developing, you have certain monies available at a certain period of time that you got to do it by a certain time frame, and that's what was met here. I believe that the they that Mr. Bernardo was talking about is GFL, separate party, separate use, that was there historically and was worked out. The part, I guess it's the culvert that I guess was at some point in time done haphazardly and then made more formally was done prior to API purchasing the property. It is essentially located on this colored map, and you'll have to appreciate that I essentially stopped art at about grade 5. So the little blue colored area, which is adjacent to the pink or fuchsia, is essentially where that right of way is currently located. That's in reply to Mr. Greco's question.
Mr. Spatafor is highlighted on my map, on the big map. I don't know if committee members want to see this or not. Where the driveway or where the in and out is going to be, 2 black lines.
While that's happening, I certainly don't want to minimize the concerns of the neighbors. They're real and they're important. And my understanding in conversations with the planning staff was that the site plan control and essentially the way to exercise some of the control over that property is contemplated already in the agreement. Or sorry, in the report. My apologies.
Firm with you, Mr. Spatafor, that the driveway for access egress can only be where it abuts St. Mary's, abuts Sackville Road.
Correct.
And it's blue on the
That's right.
highlighted diagram that you presented.
Correct. That is correct.
Thank you, Mr. Spatafor. That helps me greatly. Thank you.
Okay.
To ask.
Yes.
I'm sorry about that. I should ask if you'd like to come up and speak to the matter. And just if I could get your first name, your last name, and your address.
My name is Daniel Evans, live at 2 Northridge Road. So I am on the corner of Northridge and Mary Ave. My backyard faces directly into the industrial court. So in regards to the dust and the noise and the shaking of the houses, I can attest to all of it. It startles I have 2 large dogs. They are both startled regularly when large industrial vehicles are driving down a road that they probably shouldn't be driving at those speeds. I do often have to keep my back windows closed so I don't have dust in my house. So that would be 3 different bedrooms that it does affect. I do also, my daughter likes to go to the park. There's 2 parks in the area. To gain access to one of them, she would have to travel down Sackville Road. She's 12 years old, but I'm not comfortable having her go down that street by herself just because of the nature of the street. I know it is a residential area, and could I get a show of hands of people who have driven down Sackville Road in the past 3 months, 4 months? It's absolutely atrocious. You pretty much have to go 30 down the street. There's potholes everywhere. I think increasing the amount of industrial traffic in that area is not welcome by the residents, but it's also damaging the street indefinitely. I've been at my current house for, I think, about 8 or 9 years. And every year it's just a couple patches done in the road. When it snows, gets wet, gets graded, all those patches are out, and I'm constantly dodging potholes when I'm going to and from work. When I bought the house, I didn't think I was going to be moving into industrial court, but now it's seeming like we're adding an access road and several other things, placing my house essentially in an industrial area, which I am very opposed to. If all the access was from industrial court, I would have absolutely no issues with it other than the dust coming in my house on a daily basis. But I think we do need to look a little closer at the entrances and the residential areas and what kind of vehicles are driving on residential roads.
I appreciate.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Spatafor, do you have anything else you'd like to come up and address?
I just want to point out or reiterate one thing and point out one other thing. Number one, I just want to reiterate the fact that the existing use of Sackville, the existing curb that was there, was something that was already on the property. And if I rewind the clock, we are here today and not at an earlier time frame. One of the reasons was to work out the right of way issue because it's city-owned property. Number one. Number two, with regards to the use of the road in Sackville, API, who will end up on the east end of the property, and ultimately I can only speak to API's intended use today and future. That all rolls out industrial court. And for certain, because of the type of equipment and the type of inventory that they have on their property, and if you've gone by recently, you will have seen that there's some power lines that were, or communication lines that were buried underground because of the nature of the equipment that's there. That only rolls out industrial park. The issue with regards to the use of the remaining 4 acres, again, very important issues from the neighborhood, not to be minimized at all. Unfortunately, that comes to a certain extent with what's there. The issues of how it was used and the control of its use by GFL today, so long as API is the owner, you can tell, reiterate, et cetera, but there are certain limitations as to what API can do. And even in the short interim period that they will own that remaining 4 acres on the basis of the agreement that they have. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
You have another question or comment? Madam Chair, allow the.
Okay, I'll take one more question and then we'll hear from committee members before we wrap
Thank you
up.
very much. Along with the concerns that we talked about, there's also the visual effect. It's a sea of garbage cans, bins, garbage, large trucks, so on and so forth. It's not something you like to see as soon as you walk out your house. And that's what we have. As well as, I'm not quite sure whether you were stating that the access was always there. That's been put in 2 years to accommodate them from coming in and out. If we're here to discuss a minor variance to allow an access to that part of the property, I don't know why they're there now. That was never done. When the city implemented that, they decided to put that in to aid GFL to get their garbage cans in and out. They didn't ask anybody to do it. They just did it. So there was no access.
Clarification. When API's deal closed, that culvert, including there's some sort of pouring of cement sides or whatever, that was already there. And API, I apologize. 2021. So it was there before. So, I mean, if it was put in months before API bought it, API can't speak to that. I apologize. I just wanted to make sure that that's.
I could comment to that. Mr. Bernardo, you're both correct. Mr. Spatafora's comment that it's been there for some time is correct. Mr. Bernardo's comment that alluded to it was not put there with permission is correct. It's something that the previous owner did without first obtaining this.
Questions or comments from the committee?
I'm sorry, if I could just add something. If the committee has questions, because there's been significant concern about dust and travel and garbage and that sort of thing. You could ask a question of the planner because it will be made subject to site plan control, and he can at least maybe clarify or inform the neighbors about what goes into a site plan control agreement.
I think that's a good idea, Madam Secretary Treasurer. I was ready to make a motion with something similar to what you just said there. So perhaps planning can allude to the concerned citizens of what site plan control is, what it's going to do about the noise and the dust, and how it's going to help this committee make a motion for this application.
Sure. So site plan control, the site is not currently under site plan control. So there's limited steps that the planning department can take to control things like dust and that sort of thing. So what we've recommended here was if this was approved, that condition would be that it goes under site plan control, meaning that if development is to occur there, then the planning department can studies based on dust, based on odor, based on a certain number of things, technical studies. So if a building permit is pulled, the site's going to be developed, it comes under site plan control. The planning department has say of what happens there, how it looks, and that sort of thing. So that's under the Planning Act, Section 41. So you can't control that. So that's the idea.
So you're essentially telling me that you can police the noise and the dust before it even happens, right?
Right, that's true. So we did, in the meantime, before Mr. Bernardo came in to speak to me at the planning department, and we relayed his comments to John Martell at GFL, of which he assured he would enact dust control measures, just talking about paving the driveway as well. So we did try to head off some of those concerns first, but in the event that the site is developed, then site plan control will kick in and we can request those studies before anything's built there.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I'm satisfied with his comments. And I'm ready to make a motion whenever the floor opens.
Let's wait to see if there's any other comments from committee members on the matter.
And I just remind the committee that with your motion, I'll require both the variance and consent, either or, whether it's approved or not.
I just had for clarification. So GFL is already they have like their head of building a couple doors down, right? For Sault Ste. Marie, and everything on the east side of Sackville is industrial at the moment. So there are like entrances that are industrial. And then just right now, the matter is that Sackville is not extended at the moment. So that's where we're having the dust issues, right? Okay. But then hopefully it's that eventually the city's going to put through paved Sackville Road. Okay. Make sure. No.
I thought you were commenting.
Yeah.
That's the intent. I mean, it certainly has to go through the process of the circulation, and but that's the future plan to extend Sackville Road. And the industrial, there are other industrial uses. So I presume, and I'm presuming that the neighbors' comments with truck traffic and that sort of thing, it isn't just related to this operation. It's any of that industrial commercial use traffic that's going up and down Sackville. Is that correct? No, okay then. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I appreciate your comments. We're gonna try to stick, I know we're trying to develop like what's going on in the neighborhood, but we'd like to stick to the matter so we don't get too far off. Yeah. Yeah. And I appreciate it.
Who is that? Who is this?
Yeah, no, I was. Yeah. Can I get your, I'm sorry, can I just get your name and your address? Okay, sorry, thank you. Okay. I appreciate your concerns. With that, right now we're dealing with the severance with Algoma Power, so we kind of have to stick with that and not get too much into the GFL. And the only reason I brought up about the industrial being on Sackville is just to kind of get a broader idea of what's already there and what's probably going to continue on in the future. So that's just where, as a committee of adjustments, we kind of have to look at the neighborhood as a, so. Yeah, thank you for your comment. We'll probably maybe let Michelle talk to that for a minute, and then we'll have to close the discussion if we don't have any questions, because we're just going back and forth a little too much.
The driveway's not been ordered closed up pending the outcome of this application.
So do we have any comments from committee members before we close the discussion?
Madam Chair, I'd just like to read out the conditions that will be attached to the variance application, just so the neighbors can once again hear what's going to be required if the application is approved.
Okay.
The westerly lot line of the severed parcel, which is the parcel abutting Sackville Road, be subject to the same standards as a front lot line under the M2 zone. Therefore, a 15-meter setback from the west lot line is required, in addition to 75% of this setback being landscaped. In a current zoning, it wouldn't require that kind of setback or that kind of landscaping. This aligns with plans to extend at Sackville Road north to third line, at which time the newly created severed lot would front on Sackville. An agreement exists in principle for the easement, but the easement can't be registered. You can't give yourself an easement. So that agreement in principle, that easement that's been agreed to, can't be registered yet until the property is not owned by the current owner. And the westerly lot line, again, subject to M2 zone requirements. The severed portion of the property be deemed subject to site plan control, which you've heard is a mechanism that the city has more teeth to be able to control what goes on that property and where things are located. And that's my final submissions, Madam Chair.
So hopefully that helps a bit to see. So with that, I'd like to close the discussion and ask for a motion.
I'm ready to make a motion in favor of the application. Madam Secretary Treasurer, can you advise me which application you'd like me to motion on first?
I think I would make motion on the variance application first, because you can't have the consent without the variance. That would be tab 2.
All right. I'd like to make a motion in favor of application 812-23-98. That the right one, Madam
Yes.
Secretary? Okay. Approve that application with the staff comments and recommendations to apply to that approval. Would you like me to read those, or is
No, that's.
referring to those fine? Okay. The reason being, I've listened to the concerns of the public. I've listened to the comments from the applicant. And we can only deal with the application that is in front of us today, and that is in the purview of our authority under the Planning Act and this committee. Those are my reasons on this first application at tab 2.
So would anybody like to second that motion? Okay, and all in favor for,
Sorry, Madam Chair. I just want to be clear on the motion because I was writing and I may have missed something. Did you say that in addressing the neighbors' concerns, you felt that most of some of those could be addressed in the site plan control?
Yes, absolutely. Site plan control is there to address all of those concerns. I'll clarify that. That's the job of site plan control and that department. And I feel that they can successfully remediate those issues.
and second by Wayne. Okay, and all in favor?
Can I just, sorry, I have to ask, so I can make sure comment or respond properly.
We can't.
Yeah, we closed the discussion.
Sorry.
Yeah. So. Yeah, right now we'll just vote for or against Joseph. And so all in favor? Opposed? Any opposed?
May have to declare a conflict, that's why there was a comment in there that, why,
It's kind of late anyhow.
it wasn't, yeah, it
It's okay.
wasn't disclosed of who the repurchased fact, they may have a conflict, why,
Oh,
I need to confirm that.
um,
That's why I should have asked. Out of 4.
Madam, in the interest of the motion is on the floor, in the interest of the disclosure and the approval or not of the vote, I think it would be appropriate to open for that question.
So then we'll put this
Actually,
aside and then
Mr. Greco, would you mind, while they're both on? I think we have to vote on the motion. If it's lost, then the question can be asked and a motion can be put back on the floor.
Okay.
So if we turn this motion down at this point and put it back on the, put a similar back on the floor, we can do that and open the floor for him to ask the question.
Okay, that's
Vote.
okay, we're gonna vote. And so Joseph was in favor, Wayne second, and all in favor.
So Madam Chair, that motion's been lost.
And we'll discussion and Frank had a question about the
Yeah, I just, sorry, I have to ask, Mr. Spatafor, it was just a comment and it just resonated throughout while things were happening. The property is being repurchased by the original seller of the property.
The way the original agreement was structured, and
Yeah.
once you flagged it, 2 and 2 came together back there for me as well. It's structured to be sold back to the original owner, which is a company. So there could be a conflict there unless they somehow direct us to sell it to somebody else, of which there may or there may not. So I suspect that the answer to your question is probably yes.
Okay. So I would have to declare a conflict on this.
I didn't realize that.
That's okay. And
Mechanism.
just the nature of the conflict,
For me,
nature of conflict.
cited, I believe it's the same as family and business related. If I'm understanding things correctly, so. So do I have to excuse myself? Okay.
So we're just going for a motion now. You just won't participate in the vote.
So would anybody like to put forth a motion matter?
I'll re-put forth my original motion. Michelle, would you like me to go through that again, or is my original comment fine to stand?
I think your original is,
Okay,
I have it recorded. Everybody's heard that the motion was to approve
Yes,
the application, noting that the public concerns have been listened to and hopefully will be addressed and can be addressed with site plan control, and that the applicant and the committee can only consider the applications that are before them and not base their decision totally on past experience. Anyone that has been involved with the property, previous property owner.
yes. I reissue that motion to approve the application.
Can I get a, and all in favor? And anybody opposed? Okay, Anthony, so that motion passed. And yeah, so motion passed and you want to just mention that there's a month for the procedure. Start. Okay. Okay, well, thank you. And anybody here for the matter, you don't have to stay around for the rest.
Still one more application
Oh.
to address.
Okay, sorry. So we have our next one. Thank you. Okay, so would anybody like to put forth a motion for matter? Your
Yeah,
agenda?
B11, the next, which would be the consent application of, for the same property, B1123. Now that the variance has been heard, I need a motion for the consent.
Okay, so anybody would like to put forth a motion for the consent?
Yes, I'll put forth a motion in favor of the consent application to be passed. Again, we've listened to the comments of the citizens in the area and the interested people, as well as the applicant. I've also reviewed the staff comments and recommendations that are the planning staff and city staff, PUC, all of the staff listed in the application. And based upon those conditions, I'm satisfied that the concerns of the citizens will be answered and met in this matter. And therefore, I'm able to make this motion to pass this application.
And a second for that application. Second by Wayne, and all in favor? And anyone opposed? Okay, so motion passed. And thank you. Thank you to everybody. I said you don't have to stick around for the rest of the meeting. Unless you want to, of course.
So Madam Chair and committee members, I'll bring your attention to tab 4. Tab 4 and tab 5, and Mr. Bruni, if you would like to wait out and shut that door behind you. We'll go to tab 4, and again, this is a tandem application, so we'll be hearing tab 4 and tab 5. We'll also note that Mr. Bruni has vacated the chambers, having previously declared a conflict. And Mr. Spadafora is representing this applicant as well. As I said, it's an application both for a minor variance and a consent. And again, I believe it would be prudent for us to review the consent application first, and then you'll see why a variance is required. So application B1223 is an application from Ruscio Masonry and Construction Limited, who are the owners of Civic number 249 Patrick Street in the Dance subdivision. Identified as pin 31580-0515, former township of St. Mary's. It is irregular in shape, having an area of approximately 2.59 hectares or 6.4 acres, with frontages on Patrick Street and Wallace Terrace. The subject property is designated residential in the official plan and is zoned R3 low density residential. Excuse me. Subject to final approval of minor variance application A1323, the applicant is requesting the committee's consent to sever and convey the subject property into 5 lots. 1 lot fronting on Patrick Street, 1 lot fronting on Wallace Terrace, and 3 interior lots to front on a private roadway. Together with mutual service and drainage easements and reciprocal easements for access, egress over, on, and through the private roadway. The intent of the application is to create 5 autonomous residential lots for future townhouse development. The proposed lot configurations are severed parcel fronting on Wallace Terrace to be 82.8 meters, irregular in depth, approximately 0.59 hectares, and illustrated as part 1 on your plan. Severed private road frontage, 38.92 meters, irregular in depth, 0.493 hectares, shown as part 2 on your plan. A severed portion fronting on the private road being 61.71 meters, again irregular in depth, 0.493 hectares in size, shown as part 3. Severed portion on the private road, 32.27 meters in size. A frontage, irregular in shape, 0.21 hectares, shown as part 4. Severed fronting on Patrick Street, having a frontage of 49.13 meters, again irregular in depth. An area of 0.793 hectares and illustrated as part 5. Public notice was sent by personal mail to neighboring properties by posting a sign on site and posting on the city website. Planning, engineering, legal, PUC, fire services, Sault Ste. Marie Region Conservation Authority, and Bell Canada had no concerns. Building and Public Works did not respond. Planning staff advised that the city's draft official plan and affordable housing task force encourage the development of affordable housing as it plays a vital role in the housing supply of the city. The housing development at 349 Patrick Street is notable as all 49 units within the project are considered to be affordable housing. The draft official plan has a policy that states the city will maintain a current comprehensive understanding of funding opportunities for the creation of affordable housing and assist applicants in accessing such funding. Based on conversations planning has had with the representative of the applicants, it is understood that applications A1323 and B1223 are a necessity due to the federal funding requirements of the project. This funding was necessary for this project to happen, and applications A1323 and B1223 are now necessary so construction of the remaining 25 units can proceed. The Affordable Housing Task Force is also recommending that regulatory flexibility be considered in affordable housing developments on a case-by-case basis. These applications are a situation for regulatory flexibility in that they propose 3 parcels, parts 2, 3, and 4, as shown on the severed sketch, that do not front on a municipally owned and maintained street. However, this situation is considered to be temporary. The overall intent of the development is that parts 1, 2, and 3, as shown on the attached severance sketch, will come under common ownership by Ontario Aboriginal Housing Services, OAHS, and merge into a single parcel fronting onto Wallace Terrace. This single parcel will contain 32 affordable housing units. Parts 4 and 5, as shown in the attached severance sketch, will come under a common ownership by the Métis Nation of Ontario, MNO, and merge into a single parcel fronting onto Patrick Street. This single parcel will contain 17 affordable housing units. As described, the eventual mergers will eliminate the minor variance as both resulting parcels will have frontage on a municipally owned and maintained street. The representative of the applicant has noted that purchase of sale agreements between the applicant and the two nonprofit organizations have been signed as described above. Planning is therefore supportive of these applications conditional on that a copy of the purchase of sale agreements be provided to the Secretary Treasurer and registering an agreement on title of the respective properties to the effect that if the OAHS and or MNO agreements are terminated, the applicant or owner will not proceed with the sale of any portion of the properties without obtaining written approval from the Director of Planning or his designate, attesting to the fact that the properties comply with the City of Sault Ste. Marie's development and planning requirements and standards. Engineering and Construction Division staff advise that easements will be required for shared servicing and access. Operation and maintenance agreements are recommended to determine cost and responsibilities for shared services. An environmental compliance approval from the MECP is likely to be required for the stormwater management pond. The site is subject to an existing site plan and drainage agreement. Fire services staff had no issues provided the private road is maintained to the same standards as a municipal road year round. PUC Distribution Inc., the electrical utility, requests that an electrical easement in accordance with the conditions of the Merrifield Condominium Development Agreement, electrical agreement. Public Utilities Commission, the water utility, requests a waterworks easement in accordance with the conditions of the Merrifield Condominium Development Waterworks Agreement. Bell Canada right-of-way requires a 3-meter wide easement to be measured 1.5 meters on either side of their buried facilities, as can be accommodated. The approximate location of their facilities has been highlighted in red on the enclosed screenshot. Since the easement is required in order to provide and sustain service, all costs associated with this transaction will be the responsibility of the owner. Compensation is to be set at a normal amount of $2 for the acquisition of these easement rights. Bell Canada also requires separate registered postponements for any mortgages and certification of title. Canada Post had the following comments. Service type and location. Canada Post will provide mail delivery service to the subdivision through centralized community mailboxes or CMBs. Given the number and the layout of the lots in the subdivision, they have determined that one community mailbox site will be needed and propose the following site, the site of lot 34. Again, that will be something that's done with the applicant and Canada Post. The committee has it for information. Municipal requirements, please update their office if the proposed description changes so that they may determine the impact. Should this subdivision application be approved, please provide notification of the new civic addresses as soon as possible. That's done, and I do that by informing them officially once I've received copies of the registered documents. Developer limit timeline and installation. Please provide Canada Post with the excavation date for the first foundation, first phase, as well as the date development work is scheduled to begin. Finally, please provide the expected installation dates for the CMBs. That's not included in the list of conditions that I'm about to tell you, but I would think we can include a condition prior to the issuance of a building permit that they be advised that construction is about to begin. Additional developer requirements. The developer will consult with Canada Post to determine suitable permanent locations for the community mailboxes. Developer will then indicate these locations on the appropriate servicing plans. The developer agrees prior to offering any units for sale to display a map on the wall of the sales office in a place readily accessible to potential homeowners that indicates the location of all community mailboxes within the development as approved by Canada Post. The developer agrees to include in all offers of purchase and sale a statement which advises the purchaser that mail will be delivered via community mailbox. The developer also agrees to note the locations of all community mailboxes within the development and to notify affected homeowners of any established easements granted to Canada Post to permit access to the community mailbox. The developer will provide a suitable and safe temporary site for a community mailbox until curbs, sidewalks, and final grading are completed at the permanent community mailbox locations. Canada Post will provide mail delivery to new residents as soon as the homes are occupied. The developer agrees to provide the following for each community mailbox site and to include these requirements on the appropriate servicing plans. Any required walkway across the boulevard per municipal standards, any required curb depressions for wheelchair access with an opening of at least 2 meters. Consult Canada Post for detailed specifications. I would suggest that the committee keep in mind that all of that can be addressed with a condition, if we approve the minor variance, with a condition that they get approval from Canada Post prior to the issuance of building permit. And we don't have to individually set those in stone so that I don't have to follow up on them. Staff recommended conditions, though, that should be attached to any approval are submit a copy of the purchase of sale agreements to the Secretary Treasurer, register an agreement on title of the respective properties, said agreement to stipulate that if the OHS and or MNO agreements are terminated, the applicant owner will not proceed with the sale of any portion of the properties without first obtaining written confirmation from the Director of Planning or his designate that the properties comply with the City of Sault Ste. Marie's development and planning requirements and standards. Provide easements for shared servicing and access together with operation and maintenance agreements outlining costs and responsibilities for shared services. Provide an environmental compliance approval from the Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks for the stormwater management pond, if deemed necessary by the Director of Engineering or his designate. Provide an electrical easement in accordance with the conditions of the Merrifield Condominium Development Electrical Agreement. Provide a waterworks easement in accordance with the conditions of the Merrifield Condominium Development Waterworks Agreement, and provide an easement on either side of Bell Canada's buried facilities to the satisfaction of Bell Canada right-of-way. Those are my submissions on the consent. And on the variance, the applicant is seeking relief from section 4.2 of zoning bylaw 2005-150, which states that no building or structure may be erected upon a lot that does not have frontage on a street that is publicly owned and maintained by the municipality year round. And they're proposing that 3 lots, permit 3 lots to be built upon that do not have frontage on a street that is publicly owned and maintained by the municipality year round. Note, lots will front on a private roadway. Again, planning, engineering, legal, PUC, fire services, conservation, and Bell Canada had no concerns. Building and Public Works did not respond. I won't reread the planning report. Nor will I reread the engineering. It's same comments. Recommended conditions on the variance are approval be conditional on obtaining final consent, final approval for consent application B1223. Submit a copy of the purchase of sale agreements to the Secretary Treasurer. Register an agreement on title of the respective properties, said agreement to stipulate that if the OHS and or MNO agreements are terminated, the applicant owner will not proceed with the sale of any portion of the properties without first obtaining written confirmation from the Director of Planning or his designate that the properties comply with the City of Sault Ste. Marie's development and planning requirements. And just to explain that a little bit, we're looking at 3 properties that are going to front on a private roadway, which is a very unusual request. Planning wants to ensure that there's proper review of any change to the plan that you're looking at today, and that it would meet whatever requirement is required at that time. So they want to ensure that the applicant owner, future owners understand that's what they're looking for. Maintain the private road to the same standards as a municipal road year round. And those are my submissions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Michelle. Do you have any comments, committee, Mr. Spatfor?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Keep my comments relatively short and brief on the application, but I just want to preface my comments on this application to point out something, if I may have the indulgence of the chair. To my far right are Mark Lepore and Brooke Hoaxar. As you could tell, what we should have done as things were done in the old days in law offices, the more interesting applications went to the juniors. I'm not suggesting that Mr. Lepore or Ms. Hoaxar are junior in intelligence to me. By far, that's not the case. But I think this is Ms. Hoaxar's first Committee of Adjustments meeting. So as they say, she'll learn very quickly once their application comes up that my application is images everything and substance is nothing. Anyways, I thought it was important to add a little flavor to it. Given the last application, this one is pretty straightforward. The sole purpose of this application and the reason for it is purely based on the financing model that the ultimate purchaser has set up in place. So rather than waiting ultimately for, I'm going to say maybe sometime in trying to respect the dates, 2025 for a full transfer of the properties to take place once they're all built and their financing kicks in with CMHC and what have you. The idea was to break it up in something that works and makes sense for the ultimate user. And that's essentially what underlies this application. And my client has no issues with regards to any of the conditions. I don't know if this is a question through you, Madam Chair, to the Secretary Treasurer. The one question that was asked of me just prior to coming into the meeting by my client was with regards to the submission of the agreements of purchase and sale. Is there anything that can be done to black out the prices that were?
Yeah, and we're not interested. You can.
Okay, no, I appreciate that you're not interested, but I guess the concern was if it's part of the public
certainly can.
record. That's it. Okay. I only ask if it had to be dealt with here or not.
But Mr. Spatafora, I would like to, if you're indulgent, I believe the applicant wants to proceed with construction of the remaining units. Correct? Yeah.
Yes, that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, most of these units have already been built. The last block of units are waiting to move forward. There is a section in the zoning bylaw, though, that says when a consent is open, and no building permits can be issued. And I believe I just heard you say that he has up to 2 years and this won't be completed right away, and I'm thinking we may have a little bit of an issue there with how long before the consent is issued so that by bylaw provisions, the building permit for those other units can be issued. I'm suggesting, or for consideration by yourself and the committee, that we may want to include something in the variance. And I don't believe that it's outside the purview of the variance. I believe we can include it, that if so desired and appropriate, that the permits could be issued while the consent is still in process.
Sure. Essentially, yes, that captures. I just want to clarify, and I didn't mean to either mislead or confuse the committee with regards to the 2-year time frame. I mean, a project of this size, to be very clear, if you drive by this area, a project of this size obviously takes a little bit of time. And they have already, because of the various iterations that myself and Secretary Treasurer Michelle Kelly have experienced through this one. This is the hopefully final ebb and flow of this development. There are existing already on what is part 5, the 13 units. And I believe on the far end by Wallace Terrace, 2 or 3 of those buildings had been started prior to the application coming in. It would be my client's intention ideally to keep construction going, ideally. And my 2025 date was if this was all dealt with as one big piece and there were no severances, there would be somewhere to the tune of 49 units sitting empty in a sense because of the arrangements with it before they could sell it. That's all. That was the intent.
Yeah, and I mean, I know it won't be till 2025, but with the funding arrangements and having to do the stormwater management pond, and I know that Russios would like the permits last week. That
right.
would, so rather than hold up construction, I'm suggesting that the committee could use some flexibility here.
Great. Appreciate that.
Any questions from committee member, Mr. Spatafor? To clarify, it's a private road right now because of the still being developed.
Well, actually, the project right now has frontage on Wallace Terrace and Patrick Street. As the severances proceed, though, if it would have all stayed one property, we wouldn't be here.
Okay.
As the severance proceed, though, because it's an internal private road rather than the driveway that services the plan, that's where the frontage on a private road comes out. At the end of the day, at the very end of the day, just to be clear, and we've said it, but just to be clear, units that are going to Aboriginal housing will be combined, become one. They'll have frontage on Wallace Terrace. The other will have frontage on Patrick Street. The variance to minor variance won't disappear. It'll become redundant.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. And with that, I would like to close the discussion and ask for a motion. For first, we'll go to consent.
Variance.
Variance, yeah. Thank you.
You should have. Oh, no, that's right. Yeah.
So would anybody like to put forth a motion?
Stipulations and conditions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Post in there.
I'll just that an advisement. Hey,
So you were put forth to pass. Okay. Favor the motion. Okay. Okay, thank you. Second? Second from Wayne, and all in favor? Okay, so motion passed. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Everybody.
We did them both.
Oh my,
We
I keep forgetting this. We didn't do both of them.
Good.
we gotta do the minor variance.
I'm sorry.
Good thing you're on top of things. didn't you?
I know, I was away for the last two, so I'm on the ball today.
Yeah, sorry, so we have one more. Just to go with the consent. Yeah,
Issues by staff.
okay. Thank you, Anthony. And can I get a second for that motion? Thank you, Wayne, and all in favor?
thank
Thank
you.
you. So motion passed, and thank you. I've probably said about bye to you about 5 times today, so
Promise I'm leaving now.
yeah, we'll see you.
Okay, Frank.
Thank you.
That's easy.
We had to earn our stipend today.
So that Mr. Bruni has returned to the chambers. And I'll bring your attention to items 6 and 7. Again, we have a tandem application, both a minor variance and a consent. And Mark Lepore is the solicitor for the applicant, and he has made his way to the gallery. We'll start with the consent application, that being consent application B1423, an application from James Thomas McMillan, the owner of 1090 Peoples Road. It is located on the northwest corner of Fairview Avenue, which is unopened, and Sherbrooke Drive, east of Peoples Road. The subject property is designated residential in the official plan and is zoned R4 medium density residential. Subject to final approval of minor variance application E1423, the applicant is requesting the committee's consent to sever and convey the subject property into 4 lots, 3 to front on a realigned Sherbrooke Drive and 1 to front on the unopened Fairview Avenue. The intent of the application is to create 3 additional residential lots for future development purposes. The proposed lot configurations are: severed portion will have frontage of 21.2 meters, irregular in depth, and approximately 0.105 hectares in size, shown as lot 1 on the illustration. A severed parcel, 22.7 meters, being approximately 0.091 hectares, illustrated as lot 2. A severed portion having 26 meters of frontage, 0.305 hectares in size, illustrated as lot 3, and the retained landlocked parcel 32.4 meters, irregular in shape, 0.226 hectares in size, shown as lot 4. It was circulated to the public by personal mail, by posting a sign on site and posting on the city website. Building, planning, engineering, legal, PUC, fire services, and the Conservation Authority had no concerns. Public Works and Bell Canada staff did not respond. Planning staff advised that no dwelling shall be erected on an R3 or R4 lot where municipal service such as sewer, water are not provided. Services in a public road are expected to be extended into the subject property area, but may not extend to the retained parcel being lot 4. Planning is supportive of the consent application conditional on an agreement being registered on title of the retained property being lot 4 to the effect that the property cannot be developed until frontage on a public road and municipal services are provided. Engineering and Construction Division advised the road and services should be extended to the end of Sherbrooke Drive or to the satisfaction of the Director of Engineering or his designate. A snowplow turnaround is to be provided at the end of the extension. The land development can be facilitated through a subdivision agreement, at which time the following can be addressed: roadway design, servicing design, drainage design, any required easements, snowplow turnaround, access restrictions beyond the city maintained road allowance, and any requirements of any other departments. A subdivision agreement preparation fee will be applicable, as well as a letter of credit prior to the commencement of construction for guarantee purposes. One subdivision agreement may satisfy both this application and application B1323, being 62 Sherbrooke Drive. At this time, the design of sanitary servicing on Sherbrooke Drive does not include the lot 4. If servicing for lot 4 is not possible, they recommend that documentation be registered on title to notify the current and future owners that building permits will not be issued for this property until municipal servicing is extended. There may be future costs owing from lot 4 for the development and construction of Fairview Avenue and the extension of servicing. Legal department staff advise that the city has an agreement that benefits 1090 Peoples Road. The agreement shall be terminated by reason of this severance and parcels having frontage on a developed street. The owner of 1086 Peoples Road may now wish to benefit from the past agreement with 1090 exclusive use. PUC Services, Inc., the electrical utility, advised that the developer must enter into an electrical agreement with PUC for the proposed subdivision development and provide up-to-date design drawings for the proposed subdivision development. The proposed design must be acceptable to PUC. PUC Commission Water Utility advised that the developer must enter into a waterworks agreement with PUC for the proposed subdivision development, provide up-to-date design drawings, provide a design report confirming adequate fire protection for the proposed development, provide a plan showing the location of existing water service on private property. As part of the development, provide a water service to the existing building at 1090 Peoples Road and decommission the existing water service as per PUC standards. Conservation Authority advised that any development on the subject property will require a site plan review and may require a permit from the Conservation Authority. Bell Canada right-of-way advised that they require a 3-meter wide easement measured 1.5 meters on either side of their buried facilities as can be accommodated. The approximate location of their facilities is highlighted in red on the attached, the screenshot they provided. Since the easement is required in order to provide and sustain service, all costs associated with this transaction will be the responsibility of the owner. Compensation is to be set at a nominal amount of $2 for the acquisition of these easement rights. Bell Canada also requires separate registered postponements for any mortgages and certification of title. Canada Post advised that these 4 new lots will be serviced at an existing community mailbox site located beside 23 Sherbrooke Drive. Staff recommendations are provision of registrable transfers, provision of registry survey, payment of certificate fees, payment of cash in lieu of parkland, discharge or partial discharge of charge or mortgages, payment of municipal taxes, compliance with zoning bylaw provisions, road and municipal services be extended to the end of Sherbrooke Drive, alternatively to the satisfaction of the Director of Engineering or his designate, provide a snowplow turnaround at the end of the extension, enter into a subdivision agreement to address roadway servicing, drainage, any required easements, snowplow turnaround, access restrictions beyond the city maintained road allowance, and anything else other city departments need. Payment of a subdivision agreement prep fee. If servicing of a lot 4 is not possible, documentation be registered on title to notify current and future owners that the building permits will not be issued for this property. And not the next two. The developer must enter into an electrical agreement with PUC, provide up-to-date design drawings for the proposed subdivision. A waterworks agreement, provide a design report, provide a plan showing the location of the existing water service on the property. As part of the development, provide a water service to the existing building at 1090 Peoples Road and decommission the existing water service as per PUC standards. Provide an easement in favor of Bell Canada on either side of their buried facilities. I would suggest to the committee that if the committee considers approving this application, that we can make those detailed conditions a rounded condition to the effect that they satisfy public utilities, electrical and water utility, and the director of engineering. Recommended advisements, 1 subdivision agreement can satisfy both this application and application B1323. And those are my submissions on the consent. I'll bring your attention to tab 6 is the minor variance application A1423. Again, the same property. The variance is subject to final consent approval of the application that I just reviewed. Specifically, section 9.8.1 of zoning bylaw 2005-150, a single detached dwelling is not listed in the permitted uses. The applicant requests that the committee include single detached dwelling as a permitted use to R3 low density zone building regulations. The application was circulated to the neighbors, posted on site and posted on the city website. The same comments were received from the various departments. Planning staff advised that there is an existing R3 zone property across Sherbrooke Street, of which the owner is intending on constructing single detached dwellings, and multiple R3 zone properties immediately north of the subject property, which permit single detached homes. Planning is of the opinion that single detached homes are consistent with the character of the neighborhood. The retention of R4 zoning with single detached dwellings as a permitted use will still allow for multi-unit intensification on each property if warranted. If services are extended to the retained parcel being lot 4 in the future, R4 zoning will allow for a multi-unit development on that parcel. Therefore, planning is of the opinion that the requested variances A1423 is minor, is desirable for the appropriate use of the property, and maintains the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and the official plan. Engineering and construction division staff had no concerns about the reduction of minimum frontage. Engineering has participated in discussions about granting an access easement across the municipal property to Sackville. Oh, you know what? That's not in there. Please ignore that. Legal department staff advised that the city has an agreement that benefits 1090 Peoples Road. The agreement shall be terminated by reason of this severance. And parcels having frontage on a developed street. Conservation Authority again said that any construction will require a permit. Approval should be made conditional on final consent approval of consent application B1423. And before I get the question of why are we letting a lot front where it has no municipal frontage, being lot 4, especially in view of the application we just heard, which needed a variance. And that is because it already is an existing situation. That property already does not front on a municipal maintained street. And it's just going to continue that situation, but have a caveat on it that they would have to have servicing before any permits are issued. And those are my submissions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Michelle. Mark, do you have any questions for the committee or comments to what Michelle said?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Michelle, and members of committee. The application generally is what Michelle set it out to be. We're going to create 4 lots on the western side of Sherbrooke Drive. The zoning is currently R4. In order to allow for a single, basically the extension of the single family subdivision, we need the minor variance, and severances speak for themselves. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lepore. And any questions from committee members? So I will close the discussion then, and we will start with the a motion for the minor variance.
A motion for the minor variance. Sorry, we start with the minor variance or consent?
Pardon me?
Minor variance first?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, I'll motion for the minor variance with the conditions as stipulated.
Thank you. And can I get a second for that motion? Okay, thank you, Anthony. And all in favor? Okay, thank you. And then we will, does anybody have a motion for the consent application?
A motion consent
Okay,
with those conditions and stipulations.
thank you, Joseph. And second by Anthony, and all in favor? A motion passed, so both motions passed. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Lepore will remain because he is the representative of the next application, which would be Yep, tab 8. Just have to find it here now. Okay, so tab 8 is application B1323. The applicant is
Madam
R&J
Treasurer.
Holdings, Inc.
Madam Treasurer, I forgot to ask you, who are the controlling minds of R&J Holdings Inc.? Just want to make sure we don't have any conflicts here.
Okay, I'll let Mr. First.
It's Ronald Champagne.
We're good. I'm good anyways. We've had surprises in the past, so I just want to make sure.
I appreciate that, Mr. Greco. Good call.
And, for past applications that just like I did. But obviously I should have circulated that to you. R&J Holdings are the owners of 62 Sherbrooke Drive. The subject property is designated residential in the official plan and is zoned R3 low density residential and environmental management. It is approximately 0.45 hectares or 1.12 acres in size. The applicant is requesting the committee's consent to sever and convey the subject property into 4 lots, each fronting on Sherbrooke Drive extension. The intent of the application is to create 4 residential lots for future development purposes. A severed lot being 18.2 meters frontage, irregular size, depth being about approximately 52.42 meters and being approximately 0.108 hectares in size. Another parcel being 18.51 meters, approximately 50.35 meters in depth and being 0.103 hectares in size. A third parcel being 19.3 meters of frontage, approximately 57.8 meters in depth and approximately 0.125 hectares. And another parcel being 21.33 meter frontage, approximately 57.8 meters in depth and approximately 0.143 hectares in size. Again, it was circulated by personal mail to neighboring properties by posting a sign on site and posting on the city website. Building, planning, engineering, public utilities, fire services, public works, the Conservation Authority and Bell Canada have no concerns. Legal division did not respond. Planning staff had no concerns, but noted that no dwelling shall be erected on an R3 lot. Where municipal services such as sewer and water are not provided, services are expected to be extended into the subject area. The same, do you need me to read the engineering comments were the same? PUC comments where the developer must enter into an electrical agreement with PUC for the proposed subdivision, provide up-to-date design drawings. Similar to the water utility, Conservation Authority advised that they need a permit, and Canada Post advised that these 4 new lots will be serviced at an existing CMB site located between 23 Sherbrooke Drive. I have listed staff recommendations, and they include provision of registrable transfers, provision of registered survey, payment of certificate fees, cash in lieu, discharge or partial discharge of charge or mortgage, payment of taxes, compliance with zoning bylaw provisions, and then extend their road and services to the end of Sherbrooke Drive to the satisfaction of the Director of Engineering, and satisfy the Director of Engineering with a snowplow turnaround. That can all be addressed in entering into a subdivision agreement that would apply to both the previous application and this application. And those are my submissions, Madam Chair. And I would just like to also point out that this application was considered previously and approved, but had expired.
Michelle,
And there's no variance attached, which is nice.
perfect. So any questions or comments to the committee, Mr. Lepore?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A few comments. There's no minor variance in this case, as we had this property rezoned a few years ago. Given some complications, given the new development on the western side, the realignment of the road, the previous application did lapse, but it has changed slightly anyway. And so ultimately, it's very similar to the last one. We're extending the subdivision to create 4 single-family lots on the eastern side as well.
Thank you. Do I have any questions from members? With that, I'd like to close the discussion and ask for a motion.
The recommendations and comments.
Okay, thank you, Frank, and seconded by Anthony, and all in favor? Okay, motion passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members.
Yes, just started. Okay. I guess we can just. Can I ask for a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Anthony. All in favor? Thank you.
Yep.